So welcome everyone to the second Commons this week. This week we have a speaker who is actually from the Dronic, Dronic, and he will talk about a path to AI.
Artificial intelligence. Thank you, Leon, very much for offering the stage. I sit in the garage just beside this room, and it happens that I have the same working schedule with Dušica, and we met at the coffee machine, and yeah, that's why I'm here. Thank you very much for attending. And I'm an entrepreneur. I sit in the garage, as I mentioned, but recently, the past 2 years, I spent doing research. I researched the industry of artificial intelligence, and why I did that, why would an entrepreneur do that? Well, basically, in 2016, a US government report said that automation of human labor will remove half of the jobs. I know it's a scenario, it's a bad scenario. Some people don't believe it, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And what really determined me to write the paper is this slide. It's the great decoupling slide from Erik Brynjolfsson from MIT. In 2017 at the Oslo conference in California, he presented this slide which says that for the first time in human history there is a mismatch between median family income, real income, and productivity output per hour. What that means is that we develop better and better tools, but fewer and fewer people benefit from them. And this gap is obviously, since the income does not go to humans, this gap is filled by the machines. They are doing the most of the work. And unfortunately, or I don't know, the groups that all the machines they benefit from the wealth that that machine creates. So, and if you add this 47% of the jobs to these slides, the line will go down and the gap would wider. So what to do in this situation? So it's obviously that the axiom that humans fuel global economy, it's not valid anymore. And since it's unlikely that humans will develop machine skills overnight, they will be able to compete with those machines, we need to redefine the second part of the sentence, the economy, and what that can be if humans cannot directly participate in the economy. For that, I looked at the evolution, and it's a really interesting story, the figs that you have in front of you. The interesting thing about this fruit is that it's not really a fruit. If you tasted it, it's really crunchy because it has a lot of seeds. Why does it have seeds? Because when you come to Simula, you take an apple, there are just 2 seeds and a fruit around it. The bee on the apple flies, pollinates, and it flies away. The tree knows that the reproduction happened, the flower closes, and it grows the fruit on the top of it. Well, the fig is unlike an apple. It's a garden of flowers. So basically, it doesn't blossom flowers. And the way it does the reproduction, it has a wasp crawling inside the tree, and it does the reproduction. So basically, you might be eating some right now decomposed because the enzyme dissolute the wasp. So it's a dead wasp inside the fig you are eating right now. Why the wasp does that? Because it needs to do 2 things. It needs to pollinate, obviously, the fig with the pollen it brings from the previous fig, and it needs to lay the eggs of its own offspring. The fig is a nursery for the small fig wasps. And when they mature, they fly away, but only the females, because the males, they need to dig the tunnel through the fruit, and they die, unfortunately for them. So they sacrifice for the female to fly to the next fig and reproduce. So this is obligate mutualism. It's a symbiosis. It's a symbiosis between 2 very different systems. It's an insect and a tree. So now how do you implement this kind of symbiosis between humankind and AI? And this is a very basic intelligence. This is how a robot will act. The past 2 years, as I mentioned, I didn't really have an input in the economy. I was doing research, but if I would be willing to go back to work, I would want a robot to interview me, to write a CV, and after that to look for available positions. It will send out emails to the world, and after that it will have a perception model that will will check if is there anyone replying to the emails. It's a feedback. If you will need to know if anyone is replying. And of course, my background is software engineering, but the robot can figure out that I can work with as a drug dealer. That's a very easy job to find. And but that goes against my values. So we need to have some sort of an ethical module that will say it's bad or good. And our thing, the robot can figure out that, well, if it's a high competition on the market, he can give me a better job if he eliminates everyone else. So we need a way to control the system somehow. This is a very basic architecture. So the first problem on this slide is this, we've read the value model of ethics problem and how to teach a machine human values and what are those in general, because if I'm asking each one of you here in the audience, so you'll tell me different things. Here I looked at the state of the art, and what it really wants to do is to look at the economy and the human behavior, basically at our likes, what we likes. Economic theory from 19th century, they say that it's the basis of current economic model, says that what we buy, it's our preferences. Well, besides entrepreneurship and computer science background, I've been also in different therapeutical settings. And in one of them, my sister is a psychologist, and I assisted at those settings. And what the kind of ideas they use, it's something called what is absent but implicit in the person problems is what the person values. What that means, the idea comes from a French philosopher, from Derrida. He studied a form of semiotics known as deconstruction. So what it says that unlike 3D objects that you can touch, the abstract, the social constructs, for example, friendships, they are formed in relationship with what they are not. For example, hope have only sense in a relationship with despair. Justice has only sense in a relationship with injustice. So this is how humans learn these abstract concepts that don't really exist in nature. They learn by what we are not. So if we want to learn what humans value, we really need to look at what the problems they have. So if we gave her enough data about their problems, we can figure out the patterns in their and what they value. So this is the solution proposal for the ethics module. And with that idea in mind, I developed a very simple chatbot. It's nothing intelligent there. It's built on the top IBM Watson. This is some data I've got from it. It engaged a user for an average of 4 minutes and answered 8 questions. The sample was 700 conversations. What I really discovered during those, because I looked at the logs, I discovered that people are willing to talk to a machine about their problems, but the machine should be smart. The moment they realize it's a robot, they drop the conversation. But if we pair this chatbot with a therapist, with a counselor, with a practitioner, we have a really good, deliver a good product to them to enhance the therapist's work. This is the ethics, the solution proposal to the ethics module of the system. Now the control problem. And here, how to govern an intelligence, because there are many people in the industry that believe that an intelligence and artificial intelligence very quickly transcend human intelligence because it can learn exponentially better than we do. So we need a mechanism to control it. How we do it? Well, I looked at the only available human sapient being, intelligent being. It's humans, and what really controls our brain, it's the blood, because the moment the stream of cells stops going to the brain dies. No matter how intelligent you are, you'll probably die of a heart attack. What we really need to do is to design the blood of an artificial intelligence system. And how we do that? Well, the output of the therapy, the chatbot, it was a conversation log. My sister, she's a psychologist. What she did, she went for the conversation log and made a letter. So basically, if we encrypt these letters, we can have a stream of keys, and we can feed the keys into the system. And the system will need to, the intelligence will need to negotiate access to the keys. And how do you negotiate access to a lock? You can either rent the key, that's the best scenario. You can seize, you can try to steal it, or you can break the lock. So the first scenario, it's beneficial both for us and for the artificial intelligence. It's a partnership if they rent it. And the intelligence will need to figure out some sort of economic activity to be able to pay for these keys. The two scenarios were also possible, and a way to mitigate those is to do something found in the blockchain technology. They do network forks all the time. So basically, you store the system at one point in time, and after that you fork it. So in this way, the system always competes with the younger version of itself. So it's not according to his interest to launch such attacks, like seizing or bypassing the encryption. Yeah, and the third problem, it's really the intelligence problem, what really intelligence is. Here I looked at the state of the art, a paper by Rich Sutton. In 1989, he formalized the idea of DINA. What that means that intelligence, what really is predicting things in your head using an internal model of the world. It's also you might know it as a model reinforcement learning, something like that. I'm not sure. So if you think a bit how do humans take decisions, you can make something and get a reward, a feedback from the world. That's reinforcement learning. You get a reward or a punishment or a penalty. And that's behind the Go game and the success of DeepMind. They use the reinforcement learning to really learn the game. But what the voices in the industry were saying, and this is Jan LeCun from Facebook, he's saying that what the real intelligence is this prediction of things in your head. And to predict things in your head, you need an internal model of the world. You need to build this world simulator somehow. And here at the world simulator problem, here I looked at treatise in sociology by Berger and Luckman. What they studied how humans construct realities, how humans construct things that does not exist. Friendship, how do you define friendship? He identified 3 processes, and they proposed a thought experiment. For example, you have two humans who will be left on the island after an ecological disaster. They'll be left on an island and they'll need to start from scratch a civilization. They are from different cultures, but they need, on the first generation, they need to agree on, they need to sort their percepts into classes. They need to say that this cave over there is shelter, that running thing over there is food. And in the first generation, they'll sort their world into perception into classes of perception. So the second, their kids, what they'll do, they will say, well, but there are different way to build a house or to make a shelter or to make food. So they will try to make institutions around these classes. So there'll be institution of motherhood. How do you raise a child? Institution of construction? How do you build a house? The third generation, because there will be many institutions and people wouldn't know which one is the right one. And that's when you actually need a legitimation process in the stamp of approval. But in a research community, for example, the peer review, it's a stamp of approval. It wouldn't be possible for me to come and talk in front of you if I wouldn't go to the conference, to a peer-to-peer review conference. They will review me. They say, okay, this is good to be a research, and they will publish in a journal. So, and when I looked at this process, it really rings bells with how a deep learning algorithm understands what an image of a fig is. Because the first layer is edges, the second is contours, third is objects, fourth is image. It's compositional. It led me to the idea, and this is just an idea, it's not proved, that deep learning can represent both the objective layer of reality and the social constructed layer of reality. And if you build a deep enough network, you can represent the world, the entire of it. Yes. And how do you do that? I called it reality description algorithm. So the goal of the system is to pick a simulation of reality of minimal cost to the input parameters. And the input parameters here are the data from this transcript. Because what you have there, you have actors. And you need a simulation, you need to populate it with vectors. So here, the first parameter is those actors from the therapy rooms. And the second input parameter is the real, you need perception data to render the environment to near exact copy of reality. And you can output a simulation. And you can, basically, if you have this system where it runs the world, you can take really good decisions because you know what the repercussions of your actions will be. And that leads me to the fourth problem and the last one, hardware problem. Because right now it runs on 0 and 1 on digital, but all of you know Moore's law, which says that, but for the ones that don't know, which says that every 2 years the computing power doubles, it goes exponentially, but there is in 2021 there is a milestone, basically, because it doubles every 2 years. You need to pack smaller and smaller transistors on the silicon waffle, and you cannot do that anymore because it's a physical limit. And after that, I read the report on the semiconductor industry, ITRS. It's 100 and something pages, but if you feed it into a neural network, and I feed it into mine, one keyword will pop out. It's something called 3D power scaling. What we want to do is if you cannot go in depth, you make it up. So we want to build silicon transistor on the transistor. So I don't really believe that's the solution because the real estate industry does that, and if you go to New York, you see those buildings, congestion, and people in those blocks. So what congestion can be in a silicon wafer, we don't know. But I don't believe it's the right hardware. And here I looked at the quantum computing. And at least what they promise, that you can represent n number of states on the qubit. So basically, this is block sphere. You can, in theory, you can represent information on any of these points. But in practice, right now, only the poles of the sphere. So n simulations of reality require n number of states, and this might be the technology we need to run this world simulator. And this is the solution proposal. So very basic, that is the basic intelligence. Instead, on the agent, the box will be a world simulator which will predict the outcome of actions. So, you run the simulator, you get the minimum, and after that you apply it to the real world. So you don't do something bad here. If bad happens, it happens there. But yeah, this might sound like science fiction. But actually, the real products that, if not allowed to develop this intelligence in next decade, maybe in 20 or 30 years. And this is not in the paper, and it's not. You are the first one to see it. What will be the first product? The first product, it's a CRM for counseling. Basically, you have two input parameters here. It's a client of a problem and a psychologist of knowledge. They go through counseling, and what the output parameter will be, it will be letters, the transcript that I showed you previously. And now opportunities for research for you. Here, 15 minutes before the conversation, the chatbot will interview a person. After that 5 minutes, the counselor will review, the session starts, session ends at 45 minutes. Now we have audio recording, and you need the neural network to transcribe the audio into a transcript, into text. Of course, the transcript will be processed by the counselor, by the therapist, but we need to help them doing that because they're not able right now. My sister is having 1 hour of session and 2 hours of data processing, basically. And that's why it's so expensive to go to a psychologist right now, because it costs a lot of money for them to see you. And here you have output. The output parameter is really the letters. And what you can do with the letters, you build something called the scaffolding app. The idea comes from, it's a Soviet psychologist named Vygotsky, which introduced the concept of scaffolding, of zone of proximal development. What that means that humans, to learn something, they need to split the information into chunks. If you wrote a PhD, you probably do it in chapters, and chapters you wrote in the sub-chapters. Because it's too much information, you cannot process that much information. What you need is to split the information in smaller chunks, in zones of development, and you need a sophisticated peer. You need someone that is more knowledgeable than you. For you, you might know it as a supervisor or as a teacher. I had it as most of the information I know right now about AI, I see it on a YouTube conference from Azil Omar. It's a really good one if you want to check it. So this is the idea behind the scaffolding app. You have the letters, and this is the person who will do it themselves. You have the letters, you build the scaffold for a person to become more knowledgeable about his strengths and skills. And here are another opportunities for research for you. Because you input letters to a text-to-speech, you make a podcast for other people to listen. You make them, you feed the letters into a supervised learning algorithm, K-means for example, or anything that's better, and you get clubs. You make clusters of people, and you assign them according to similarity of their stories, not to their diagnosis. And this is really important. And another thing what you can do, because the nature of information is really sensitive, it's private, really private, you need technology that can prove ownership of an asset without really giving the information. And that's why you need a crypto model there. And what you do with this, and the output really what will be, it will be a client story. What that means, a person will be able to write his life story, basically to describe what happened from the beginning to the end. Not to the end, but to the current position. What you can do with that, the client story. And here something called, I did it for myself the past 5-6 months, and what I really discovered that it denies the liberal idea that current Western culture is really relies on, the idea of self, of a core self. Maybe you think that deep inside you there is a true self of you. There is no such thing, because humans they live in societies, in tribes, and they interact with each other, and they form different, I call them identities, but it's really a membership. It's a club of identities. So right now I'm being the MC, the master of ceremonies. I know how to do it because a few years ago I organized a social event at my company. For example, that's why I know how to do it. And now really what we need to do, and this is an opportunity for you, if you figure out how to map those identities into a qubit. So basically you can have a narrative copy of a person, upload it to a computer. What it can do, you upload this, it's basically uploading your CV and let the CV work for you. And it will pay you a paycheck in the back. It sounds like science fiction, but what you can do is that you can run the entire service part of the economy. That's $50.4 trillion a year. So you take this entire chunk, 63. It's, if you figure out how to do it, it's a lot of wealth you can share with the ones that participated in the process. So this is how you reduce that gap between the wealth created by machine and people that cannot really benefit from it. So this is what I really want to do. I really want to do, instead of 160 hours of work, I want to do 1 hour of reality description. Because what really happens in the therapy rooms, you describe reality. People say it's therapy, it's mental health, other things. What I really seen, I seen that it's really a reality description. And that's what we need to feed into a computer and benefit from it. If you want to learn more, that's at narafy.org. And the credits go to who helped me. It's the Romanian Narrative Therapy Association that introduced me into the therapy rooms. It's a school of entrepreneurship from Bay Area. It's a fund grant from Innovation Norway, and it's Simula, obviously. And yes, right now I'm in the process of writing a research proposal. I never did that, so if you can help me with that, I would really appreciate it. But so these are the 2 partners that are confirmed. This is the Therapy Association. This is the startup I'm running. This of Lars Kai Hansen is from the Technical University of Denmark. What I met him at Intellisys 2 months ago, and we exchanged some emails. What he really does, he uses differential privacy to train a deep learning algorithm to predict a student's likeliness to take an exam. And this is really sensitive because nobody wants to finger pointing at you saying that you will fail. So this is really touching the privacy of people. And this is something I need to really not infer with sensitive data that I'll be having in the system. And I exchanged some emails with Stuart Russell from Berkeley. He was interested to read the paper. I don't know if something good out of these two things will emerge, but maybe you want to join the research proposal. So we need machine learning skills, cryptography, and hardware design. If you can do any of that, let's talk after that. And yeah, my contact details, let's contact on LinkedIn. You can try the bot on rfi.org, but it's not intelligent, it's a script. But it does a counseling exercise that otherwise will cost you 100 NOK, let's say. And the takeaway, the questions were worth answering. The ethics, how to teach machine human values. The control, how to govern an intelligence. The intelligence, how to teach a machine common sense. A prediction. And the hardware, how to represent information in a qubit. So if you want to take any of these questions for your next research project, feel free, and I can probably show you where to start, but after that you'll have to do it on your own. And yes, thank you. That was the presentation. And questions, if there are any.
So what type of customer development have you done, and what have you learned about potential customers wanting to use such an app?
Because I'm building right now the inception of a CRM for my sister, and she's a part of a narrative therapeutic community. It's around 5,000 customers around the world. They do everything by hand, unfortunately. So I'll plan to develop a product for them first. So they will start using the system and gathering the data, because the core value of this entire thing is the data. It's the blood of the intelligence system that we aim to build at some point in future.
As you said that your app will be able to answer the questions and or queries of people who are seeking help or something.
Yeah.
How much of data are you taking into consideration to train your networks?
How much of data?
Because if you talk about Google, Google is having a huge database, and still the OK Google is not that perfect as expected. But if you are talking about getting the sentiments of people, what they really want, it I think will take a lot of data.
Yes, that's true.
Which is the problem these days in deep learning and.
Yes, around the world, World Health Organization estimated there are 600,000 of mental health practitioners. So I will try to gather all these people on the same network, and let's see what amount of data they can gather in their counseling. So I hope to get as much data as I can, but I cannot give an estimate of exactly how much data is needed to train a neural network to be good enough for understanding, I don't know, 2,000 intents or 2,000 classes. Yes.
How large is the international market for e-therapy services?
For e-service, I'll tell you how much is spending the U.S. government on therapy. They spend $200 billion on the mental health in total, and the Norwegian government spends 7 billion NOK. So it's very, but they do it really inefficiently.
But do you think you can address that entire market? I mean, isn't like 7 billion what they spend?
I hope so. I hope so to address, because what's the marketing strategy really? This research business is not a really profitable one, Because I wrote the paper, but they put a 20 euros price tag on it, but I get nothing of it. So I'll use the paper to write a sci-fi novel, and that's what I'm doing right now during the night. I'm writing a sci-fi novel, so when I'm having the book signings, I'll sign the customers as well.
Assuming you're facing some challenges doing the most complex way of doing this, have you set any middle ground to kind of see how you can achieve more ideal outcomes for patients than even your low-level chat?
Well, the goal of the system is to develop AI, a human-level AI. But the byproduct will be that will help people with mental health. And here the market is 300 million people that are living with depression right now. But I don't want to say that I'm building a system for them to help with them, because that's not how things work. If you want to achieve success, if you set the target as a success, most probably you won't achieve it. If you do something you like, the product will be that you are successful. So if we are building an AI and say that in the process we help mental health people to improve their mental health, that might work. But if you say that, yeah, we'll help them with mental health, I don't know. There are a lot of people that are already doing that. Headspace, it's a meditation app, one of them. It's the most successful one. What else? So maybe I deviated from the question, but yes. Yes?
So you say the goal is to build like a general AI.
Mm-hmm.
Your inputs are basically people with problems, stories from people with problems.
Yes.
How will that general AI be? I mean, to me it sounds like it will have a lot of problems. Right? It only learn from negative examples.
Yes, but it depends on the stories you feed into the. So what will happen? Why the counseling happens? Because people come with problems, but with having the idea of absent but implicit in people's problems, they will be telling about their preferred ways of thinking. So it will be positive stories. But we need the problems in the beginning to understand you need the negative one to understand what's the positive. So the moment you get on the branch of the positive stories, they start to tell the good things about themselves, and that's how they improve their mental health. That's why this approach works, because it doesn't focus. There is another approach to mental health called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. What they do is they say they have three things: thoughts, behavior, and actions, something like that. So basically, they are reinforcing the same bad outcomes. They say it's evidence-based because people are going to a therapist and when they're talking about a problem, it helps. But in the long term, the next time a person has a problem, he will go back to therapist. They don't really solve anything. Yes?
I'm not sure if it's okay for you to share the information, because I don't know if your product is live or not, but I'm a bit curious about the technical stuff related to your algorithms, because you mentioned 3-4 kind of learning algorithms.
Yeah, no, the math is not done, because at this point I didn't write any equations, for example.
Not the math, but I'm a bit curious that what kind of learning are you using, because in this human sentiments are also involved, which can be you can use RNTNs and all, but you also said that you are making a clusters of
stories, yeah. K-means.
Information which is relevant to each other. So yeah, I was a bit curious what kind of networks are you using?
I didn't research it that far. I didn't go that deep into. I don't know yet, because right now what I'm really doing now is let me. I'm doing this CRM, and the parts of that involve machine learning are not there yet. I'm using external providers like Watson, IBM Watson, but I'll build the CRM just to get the basic things like scheduling an appointment, basic interviews, and something like that. But I need the algorithms. That's why I'm in front of you, because you could want to collaborate, maybe want to build those algorithms. It's a partnership. It's a FIG, mutually beneficial partnership.
So do you have like a split identity model, like with like the current state of identity versus the desired one?
Yeah.
And or the states and parameters? Did you like elaborate that out in your research? Or?
Not really. In the paper I did the directions because it's a lot of information I'm telling you right now. Maybe should go into patent. I don't know yet. So I didn't really write it down because I'm not being a researcher. I don't know how this works. How much can you publish before you file a patent? Stuff like that. I don't know because there is a lot of information here. So I studied the entire field. So the moment I will get it to the point when I will be building this client story, that's when I will research that area. But right now, if I'm doing that, I'll get too much information. I'll lose myself in it. Yes.
So you mentioned you were writing a proposal on this. So which funding program are you targeting?
I looked at the Research Council of Norway and the test phase. They have one specific topic. The test one. I'll just need to, I don't know. I will test it.
So this is not innovation-based, or it is research-based programs?
It's research-based.
The idea is more on the commercial side versus, for example, ICT Blossom or something, which is more on the research side.
But I'll need to research as well. But I think this can access both of them because this part is really innovation. It's not really cutting edge. But this part already, it can be research. And this is science fiction already. So, yes. If you have any questions.
It's time to speak.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, det var bra.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, my brain is square. That's very good.
Yeah, it's a lot of information to process.
Yeah.